Well, hello there. Today I'm going to share a little bit about a Vata pacifying diet according to Ayurveda, the ancient science of well-being from India. So in Ayurveda, we have three doshas, what we call the three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And these three principles in our body, minds, they govern all the different functions, processes, organs, of the body. And a very important key to health, one of the number one keys to well-being, is to keep these three doshas of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha in balance. And so, anyways, today I'm going to focus in on Vata, and specifically how to balance Vata if there's a Vata imbalance through diet and nutrition. So first of all, what is Vata? What is this Vata principle? So Vata is composed of two of the five elements, air and space. And so Vata governs in our body, minds, movement, communication, and transportation. So, in our body, communication is necessary. Our nervous system is a communication system that connects the brain to the motor organs and obviously the sensory perception back to the brain. And so the nervous system is related to Vata. The movement of food through the digestive tract, the proper elimination of waste, all of those kinds of things relate to Vata, as well as just our normal day-to-day interpersonal communication, as well as intrapersonal communication, communicating with ourselves, understanding ourselves. So that's a little bit about Vata. And every dosha has certain qualities. And there's different qualities in nature. Ayurveda describes 10 pairs of opposites. So 20 total qualities in nature. These opposites are like cold and hot, dry and oily, heavy and light, that sort of thing. So the qualities of Vata, Vata is cold, dry, and light. And these are some of the main qualities of Vata. And so when Vata is out of balance, some different signs and symptoms can show up. One of the most common symptoms would be anxiety, dryness in the body, could be spaciness. There's too much of that air and space kind of elemental thing going on. So anxiety, worries, sometimes difficulty falling asleep. For women, dysmenorrhea is most often related to a Vata imbalance. Things like ADD, having difficulty focusing, where the mind is scattered and jumping from one thing to another. All of those things can be symptoms that Vata is very likely out of balance in your system. And this can be on a physical level or on a psychological level in the mind. So there are many ways to balance Vata, and nutrition, diet is not the only way, and not even necessarily the most important way, but it is something worth understanding, worth pursuing if there's a Vata imbalance. Disclaimer here, the Vata pacifying diet isn't for everybody. So Ayurveda is tailored to everybody's unique needs. And so once again, this diet will be beneficial for somebody who needs to balance Vata. Somebody who needs to balance more Pitta, they would need a Pitta pacifying diet. For someone who needs to balance Kapha, they would need a Kapha pacifying diet. And sometimes in a person's unique situation, it's not just that Vata needs to be balanced. Maybe Vata needs to be balanced without creating too much heat and aggravating Pitta. So I don't want to get too complicated in this video. These details are beyond the scope of today. My point is that it's really best to consult with an Ayurvedic practitioner in order to understand what is needed for your specific circumstances, either for preventative health purposes or in order to help bring balance if there's something going on. So with that disclaimer, I'm going to cover the general overall principles for balancing Vata with nutrition. So first of all, regularity in meal times. So Vata is really balanced by a certain amount of routine and regularity. And this connects us to the natural cycles of nature, sunrise, sunset, seasons, all of these things happen in an orderly, regular way, in a rhythm. And in order for Vata to be well balanced, it's important to align in a way that's, relaxed and natural, but to have a certain amount of regularity. So in many cases for Vata, 3 meals a day is a really good idea, and even with an afternoon snack in between. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, and an afternoon snack can be a great idea, especially if the body weight is a little bit on the light side. And so eating these 3 meals and the afternoon snack around the same time, give or take a half hour, is great. So something like 8 a.m. breakfast, 12 noon lunch, and maybe 3 p.m. snack and 6 p.m. dinner. That's one general idea that could be done. Breakfast could be a little earlier. It just depends on what works for you. The point here is regularity. Getting into that natural rhythm with eating is really good for balancing Vata. Other thing that can help is some hot milk before bed. Again, especially if there's a need for grounding, if the body is on the light side, having that milk, hot milk with spices before bed is wonderful for Vata. More information about milk from the Ayurvedic perspective I've covered in another video. So I recommend checking that out if you're interested in milk. So second point is body weight. Balanced body weight is super important in Ayurveda. So in our culture, there is sometimes too much emphasis and concern placed on losing weight, you know, and it's just a little bit under acknowledged that if a person is too thin or underweight, it's really important for them to gain weight for their well-being. And so what I'm getting at is Ayurveda is all about balance. We don't want to be too light and we don't want to be too heavy either. We want ideally to try to find a balance. And that balance, what's balanced for me may be different than what's balanced for you. And so what we find is when there's Vata imbalance, there's often underweight, or in extreme cases, even emaciation. And so it's crucial. You can follow all the other things that I cover in the video, but if you're underweight and needing to gain weight, until some weight is gained, chances are the Vata imbalance will not be fully resolved, because that we need to balance the lightness of Vata, which is super important. So anyways, it's good to be aware of this. I recommend, calculate your BMI. Go online, there's different websites where there's a BMI calculator. If your weight is below the normal range, just know that it would probably be beneficial to try to gain a little bit of weight to get back into that normal range. Even if the weight is on the low side of what's considered normal, it may be very helpful in bringing more balance and more well-being, to gain a little bit of weight and try to get kind of right in the middle there. Again, these are general considerations. Everybody's unique. And so you kind of have to look at your specific circumstances and all of that. So next is our food choices, the different tastes to favor and avoid. So Ayurveda talks about classically 6 tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. So 6 tastes. And 3 of these tastes are going to help bring more balance when we're looking to balance Vata. And the other 3, in excess, can aggravate Vata. And so the 3 tastes to favor for balancing Vata are sweet, sour, and salty. So first, let's talk about the sweet taste. Sweet doesn't just mean like sugary sweet. Sweet can be basically any kind of carbohydrate, like, healthy grains, rice, wheat. Wheat works for you. Milk is sweet. Many fruits are sweet. Think of dates, mangoes, and apples. And, most fruits have some element of sweetness. And wholesome natural sweeteners like coconut sugar, maple syrup, the more kind of unrefined sugars like sucanat or turbinado. All of these things can actually be beneficial for balancing Vata. Actually, refined white sugar is not recommended. That can be Vata aggravating. And the other sweetener that's not helpful in balancing Vata is actually honey. Why is that? That's because honey has an astringent quality to it. And so it has this kind of drying effect, that kind of scraping and drying effect on the body. So honey is good for pitta, is good for kapha. At some point, I'll probably make videos for pitta pacifying diet and kapha pacifying diet, in which case honey would be just fine. When we're looking to balance vata, it's not the best choice as a regular sweetener. Okay, so we kind of covered the sweet taste. So all those sweet foods are great for balancing vata. And the sour taste. So things like lassi, which is made from yogurt, mix yogurt with water to make it like a drinkable temperature, drinkable consistency. That will provide, probiotics, which is wonderful, and the sour taste. Squeezing some lemon juice or some lime juice on your food, another excellent way to add sour taste into your diet. A little bit of kombucha or sauerkraut or these kinds of fermented foods. Anyways, in the right amount, sour is beneficial for vata. Sour is great. It helps to stimulate healthy digestion, stimulate healthy appetite. So anyways, so we covered sweet, sour. The last taste that's recommended for vata is salty. So if you're looking to pacify vata, it's important to make sure to get enough salt in your diet. Of course, as with anything, we want a balance. We don't want too little salt because a certain amount of salt is necessary for our bodily functions. We don't want too much salt either. But when it comes to vata, you don't want to be shy about salt. You want to kind of go by taste, go by what's most enjoyable for you. If there's a vata imbalance, we never want to deprive ourselves of salt or try to reduce it to the bare minimum. It's not necessary. So different things like soups, salty soups, miso soup, just making sure there's enough salt in the diet is great. Rather than refined table salt, sea salt or Himalayan pink salt, these kinds of natural salts are recommended. Just be sure to get enough. So we covered the taste to favor in the diet: sweet, sour, and salty. Now the taste to reduce, not necessarily avoid, because we all benefit from getting a certain amount of all the taste. But these tastes we want to reduce if we're going to balance vata. So less bitter, so you don't want too many greens, you don't want too much salad, other vegetables. Bitter melon, if you've ever tried that, it's super, super bitter. So if there's a vata imbalance, that wouldn't be something that would be beneficial to have regularly. And some spices are bitter, turmeric has some bitter to it. And so, turmeric's great. For vata, though, you would not want to overdo it. And, if there's too much bitter in the diet, one of the signs and symptoms would be dryness in the body, because bitter is very dry. And so if there's too much dryness, it could be a sign that there's too much of the bitter taste or too much of the astringent taste in your diet. We'll talk about astringent later. So less bitter foods. Green tea is also bitter, so anything bitter is not as recommended. The second taste to reduce is pungent, spicy, hot, think cayenne pepper, or just a lot of black pepper, or, taking lots of ginger. Now, fresh ginger in moderation can be actually really good for Vata because of the warming quality, as long as it's not too intensely hot, where it might get to the point where it starts to kind of dry out the system. But fresh ginger is usually great for Vata. A little bit of that warmth, like a little touch of black pepper, a little touch of these foods to add warmth is good. But when it gets to the point where it's like really spicy hot, that's what we kind of want to avoid for Vata. Okay, so bitter, pungent. The last taste to reduce would be astringent. So some astringent foods would be like, raw apple. It has, when you bite into that raw apple, it has that kind of dry quality, and that's astringent. So raw apple is astringent, not great if you want to balance Vata. If you cook the apple, the astringency goes away, the qualities become very different. And so a stewed or cooked apple actually is great for Vata. And other things that are astringent are beans, like chickpeas, black beans. These have a lot of astringency. Lentils can have a lot of astringency. And so we don't want to overdo that for Vata. However, with that said, legumes are a good source of protein, and so these things are okay in moderation. And some of the best legumes for Vata are the smaller ones, such as mung beans, or mung dal, where the beans are split and cooked. They lose their shape. And also red lentils. Also black lentils are very heavy, and they can be Vata pacifying in small amounts. Too much and they're just so heavy they're hard to digest. So you have to find kind of the right amounts. But that can be very good for Vata. So that's the scoop on the taste to favor and avoid for Vata. So to sum it up, favor sweet, sour, salty, and reduce bitter, pungent, and astringent taste. The other important points for Vata is hydrate. And because Vata is characterized by the cold quality, as I mentioned before, we want to avoid cold beverages as well as cold foods. And so it's really good to favor warm or hot foods and beverages. So even if you're just drinking water, if you want to balance Vata, make sure the water is at least room temperature, and warm or hot water is probably even better. And of course, this depends on the season. In winter, you're going to want, more hot water or herbal teas, or hot soups and hot foods. and in the summer maybe room temperature. But generally, refrigerator cold or frozen foods or desserts or beverages are generally not recommended for Vata, even in the summer. So stay hydrated. On that note, it's best to reduce, or if you're able to altogether avoid caffeine. Because caffeine is stimulating in a way that can be kind of dissipating for Vata. It's drying for the system, and so it counteracts the attempt to stay hydrated. So less caffeine or avoiding it altogether if you can. Herbal teas are wonderful, especially moistening teas. Think licorice with spices, maybe licorice and fresh ginger, or licorice and cinnamon, things like that, where it has that kind of moistening quality. Electrolytes, like coconut water. Again, you want to take that at least at room temperature, not cold, for Vata. So hydrate. So another important piece for Vata is fat and oils. We want to get enough calories that, healthy fats like ghee or butter or olive oil or sesame oil. These are all great for Vata. And so you don't want to be shy about oil or fats in your diet. Again, it's all about balance and moderation. We don't want too little and we don't want too much. So you kind of have to find the happy medium. But for balancing Vata, you don't want to skimp or be shy about that. Okay, so another thing that's really good for Vata is a certain amount of animal protein, like dairy products, think milk, especially cow's milk, if it works for you, cottage cheese, lassi, which is like a yogurt drink, paneer, which is a kind of like a fresh sort of cheese, kind of like a farmer's cheese that's easier to digest than the harder cheeses. These can be really great for Vata, because for Vata we need to ground and nourish the body. And like a strict vegan diet without these kinds of dairy products, can be very difficult to have that kind of grounding, nourishing, building effect that we need here. So in that regard, eggs can also be helpful. Sometimes meat can be helpful, like chicken or fish. Much of the time, however, it's not necessary. And moving towards a more vegetarian diet, yet with the dairy products, with the eggs, is sufficient for Vata. However, classical Ayurveda acknowledges that meat can be helpful, especially in cases of severe depletion or emaciation, or someone's very underweight. Meat can be helpful. Whether you want to go that route or not is up to you. And but probably most of the time, meat is not so necessary. Just a little bit of chicken or fish could be all that you need to bring in that groundedness. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna say is, nuts and seeds, healthy grains, legumes, these kinds of more calorie dense foods are important for Vata. So you don't want to fill up on a big salad. If there's a Vata imbalance, that's the opposite direction of where you want to go. Something like a nice bowl of basmati rice with some cooked vegetables and some, mung dal with a lassi. This is wonderful for Vata. Something like pasta with chicken and cooked vegetables and pesto, these kinds of grounding, heavier foods are what we're looking for. Calorie dense foods. And of course, we still want our fruits and vegetables. It's just a matter of finding the right balance. I mentioned the favoring warm or hot foods and beverages. And the other thing is favoring cooked foods versus raw foods. A little bit of raw food is good for Vata. It's fine. Occasionally like a side salad or something, but to have like a big raw salad every day, that's that can be contraindicated here. And so usually we want to just favor gently cooked vegetables, cooked foods. Easier to digest, it softens the food and everything like that. And so it's kind of more soothing for the digestive tract and all of that. The raw foods have the kind of rough quality. They're harder to digest. When you cook food, they're like pre-digesting food. I think I've covered all the basic essentials for a Vata pacifying diet. Keep in mind that it's really important to be natural with the diet, natural with food. So the goal of me sharing this is, what to kind of favor and what to kind of gently reduce as a general guideline. And, anything is okay in moderation here. And so we don't want to become too strict about these guidelines either. We want to kind of stay recommended, just try to stay natural and relaxed about it. One of the most important things when it comes to food and eating in Ayurveda for our well-being is to enjoy our food. So please remember that. I hope that whatever choices you make with your food, that you enjoy it. And that you kind of feel a sense of freedom with it. So that covers the Vata pacifying diet. Worth mentioning a couple other important lifestyle practices to balance Vata, which maybe I'll get into in more detail in a later video. Meditation, so regular meditation, even for just 10 to 20 minutes every day, is wonderful for balancing not only Vata, but actually all three doshas. So meditation is highly recommended. Abhyanga is wonderful for pacifying Vata. This is a self-oil massage using warm oil, which can be done, 5 to 10 minutes before taking a nice warm or hot shower. And that's also a wonderful thing to balance Vata, which can be done even every day, or every other day, or at least once a week. So Abhyanga is really wonderful and worth considering. And getting enough sleep, so proper sleep. So even this could mean allow yourself to sleep in on the weekends, or when you can. Throw away the alarm clock if and when you can. 40% of Americans are sleep deprived. And in Ayurveda, it's said that proper sleep is just as important as proper nutrition for our well-being. So sleep is a super important thing. So taking naps, a couple times a week can also be great for Vata, in the early afternoon, something like that. And if you have difficulty falling asleep, as is common in a Vata imbalance, there are different natural herbal formulas that can help with that. There are other tips from Ayurveda that can help with that as well. Super important. And as I mentioned, just routine, getting into a rhythm in your day-to-day life in a natural way that feels good to you, that doesn't feel too rigid or strict or whatnot. We just want to kind of align with the kind of rhythmicity of nature. So meditation, abhyanga, sleep, and routine. Those are like the big four for pacifying Vata. The last thing I'll mention for pacifying Vata is what I like to call the factor. When there's a Vata imbalance, we often need more kind of sweet, relaxing, calming experiences that just make us go, and just kind of release all the stress and bring us to a state of relaxation and rest. And so a couple of different ways to get that in your life would be massage, maybe a once a month massage, taking a hot bath with Epsom salt and lavender, some essential oil. Abhyanga, that self oil massage I mentioned before. Getting enough touch, pet therapy, having a pet that's sweet and cuddly, and you kind of get the idea. Anything that gives you that feeling of it just kind of relaxes and calms the nerves. So that's also wonderful for Vata. And also, yoga and meditation can bring that as well. So I think I've covered all the basics that I was hoping to cover. I hope you found this video interesting. Some of these considerations would have to be potentially modified for a person's specific unique circumstances. And so I'd recommend, if you really want to go deep into Ayurveda, find an Ayurvedic practitioner to help you to understand your unique needs for your optimal health. If you have any questions or comments on this video, I would love to hear from you, so feel free to be in touch. Namaste.